Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer J. Raffler, and I am your host for the Sol2Soul Global Summit. Learn the truth about our sun, how it heals us, supports our spiritual evolution, and more. Today, we have a very, very brilliant guest, Magenta Pixie. Magenta Pixie has been in communication with a collective group of light beings or a higher self aspect since 1993. She affectionately refers to these beings as the white-winged collective consciousness of nine, or simply the nine. Regular meditation and a journey of synchronicity within her own life led to this awakening and connection. Magenta releases her messages from the nine in video form on YouTube. Since releasing her first message in 2008, she has attracted over 55,000 subscribers. She has worked individually with clients all over the world and is the author of Masters of the Matrix and Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template. Both are channeled books teaching individuals, particularly starseeds and lightworkers, to find their own sovereignty through the understanding of their own energy system. Her passion is helping people to move through trauma, embrace the enlightenment and ascension path, and find their own connection with creativity, divinity, and joy. Hi, Magenta!
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking me to be on your summit.
Absolutely. I am so honored that you said yes and that you are here today. And I'm jumping out of my skin. Can you tell us, does the sun heal us?
Oh, it's interesting actually when you said you were doing the Sol2Soul summit and asking about the sun, because I was thinking to myself, I don't really know much about the sun at all. And to be honest, when you look at the sun, I actually feel I don't know that much about the sun because it is such a vast being. I will do my best to respond to your questions within the knowledge that I have, or if I don't have the knowledge, I'll see if I can access any response from the nine to your questions. So, does the sun heal us? Absolutely, it does. Yes, it's incredibly pivotal and extremely crucial in our well-being and our healing. Obviously, we would need to be careful with that because in the physical dimension, we could actually go outside, especially someone like me with red hair and pale skin, and we could be completely sort of not healed. There's been many a time in my life when I've been really badly sunburnt, but taking your sun exposure carefully, depending on the type of skin you have, but it's more than just the warmth and the heat of the sun that heals you. There are information codes within the sun, and they are passed to us through the sun's light rays, and the sun acts as like a doorway or a gateway for other light rays of different kinds of light to come through the sun. So it acts as a sort of intermediary with other forms of light and forms of codes that we need to receive. So healing, absolutely, definitely, yes. I've actually had times in my life when I haven't been very well, and I have sat outside in the sun and felt so much better, as long as I said, take it carefully. Don't think, oh, I don't feel well, and lie in the sun all day long, but to do it in stages. And there's a lady called Joanna Budwig who devised the Budwig protocol, which is a healing protocol specifically for heart problems, arthritis and cancer. And within her protocol, you'd have to go and research it. I wouldn't sort of go into the whole protocol. It's about having flaxseed oil. It's the omega-3s in flaxseed oil because of the type of oil it is and the electrons that oil provides, and you mix that oil with a sulfurated amino acid medium. And then part of her healing protocol is after you've had the oil mixture, you sit outside in the sun. And I've used this protocol, and it worked rapidly and quickly. So yes, it heals us.
As you were talking and saying about the codes and the activations, I was getting waves and waves of goosebumps and chills. I mean, I believe that to begin with, but hearing those words come from you is just a huge confirmation. It just felt great to hear those words. So thank you.
Thank you.
These codes, are these like activations within our DNA that are dormant?
Exactly, yes. So you've got the DNA structure, and there is a lot of people will talk about having new strands being formed, but really what you've got is a full DNA structure with parts of that DNA online and activated, and other parts are unaccessible to us, if you like. They are etheric DNA. So the sun has, and as I said, it acts as an intermediary for other forms of light as well. The sun's rays contain within them, if you like, and it's difficult to explain this because what you are looking at here is frequency. So the rays of the sun contain codes or frequencies that will activate the DNA. But what is actually happening is the information within the codes of the sun and the information that lies dormant within the DNA is in one and the same place. So for us, we're here on Earth and the sun's millions of miles away from us and it passes rays to us and activates us, is actually a metaphor for what is really happening, which is the fact that our etheric DNA structure and the structure of the sun and many other planetary bodies and stars and an entire celestial reality are merged. Our DNA is in the same place with these celestial bodies. But the sun, as it passes its rays to us, obviously it gives us life on a physical level, but it's also a DNA reminder in itself. So are all the stars, so are all the planets, the entire cosmos. So when we look out to the cosmos, it's a huge picture that's saying, wake up, look at us, remember what we are. So on one level, you have a memory activation just by the look of the solar system. And then you have a memory activation through the codes coming in through the rays of the sun. So cosmic rays and the light within the cosmic rays are actually creating activation on a physical level from us being on Earth and the sun being where it is. There's distance there. So it's passing the rays through the distance and going deeper into that, we're actually connected and are in the same place as well. So the DNA structure is able to come online, reform itself, restructure itself, whichever way you want to look at that process. And all the planetary systems work in different ways to assist with this process. But the sun works physically by pouring its light rays and its warmth onto our bodies as well.
So another perfect example of as above, so below.
Oh yes, oh absolutely.
Yeah.
As above, so below, and really as nested together as one. If you want to go to the higher perspective, there isn't really any distance in the true perspective. We are all in the same place. I mean, the sun itself is a vast topic, so it's wonderful that you're doing an entire summit about it, and to get different people's perspectives and see if those perspectives marry up. And that's really where the truth lies. It's not really coming in from one person. For the seeker, for the researcher, then they'll look at several people who've never met each other and then marry together. I know in America you probably call that due diligence. We call that sort of cross-referencing here. Yep. That's a really good way for people to learn, to see what all these different connected individuals are, or people who've accessed their own DNA codes and their own memories. What are they all saying? So it's a vast subject, and I feel I'm just a baby and an absolute beginner when it comes to the sun. There's so much more to learn. It is unbelievable. I mean, the nine will show me the codex being, if you think of a code as one book or one a piece of paper, as in a manuscript. A codex would be a library. So the sun, the information regarding the sun and our relation to it is kind of several libraries, if not an infinite bunch of libraries. So that's kind
Sure.
of why I feel like a beginner.
How does this tie in with ascension? How does the sun help us ascend or accelerate our consciousness?
Well, obviously, in the ways that I've said, I mean, ascension is the regrouping of the DNA structure. That's what
Okay.
ascension is. So obviously, the sun is sending these light codes to us in a sort of quantum entanglement way, as in we're in the same place, and also in this physical way of sending light rays. So we are in a synergistic merge and a communicative state with the entire solar system, because ascension isn't just occurring in humans, it's occurring within the entire solar system and potentially outside of that structure as well. So the sun is ascending as well, as we are. So of course we have DNA, but so do all these structures, although it manifests in different ways. So they might not have DNA, genetic material in their blood in the way that it manifests in us. But the DNA structure is like a matrix, and we all, including the planetary bodies and the sun and the stars, we all have that same matrix. In the Bible it says, God made man in his own image. And so that's what it means. The matrix, the structure, the crystalline structure, the lattice, which is a huge codex, as in an infinite codex. We all have that same structure. We're all absolute matches. And when you look at what I was saying earlier about us, the DNA being in the same place, ultimately from the unified viewpoint, then all the planets and the solar systems and the universes and the people are all in the same place because they're the same being. Oh, and there's more as well, as in the solar flashes that are occurring. When these solar flashes are projected out, we get like a huge energy spike. Now how that's working is, again, in these two ways. One, we are receiving actual physically measured heat waves or light waves from the sun that can be seen and measured, but also because of the quantum entanglement, as in our DNA is in the same place as the matrix structure, which we could call sun DNA, if you like. When that solar flare shoots out in this projected sense from the sun, we have a matching spike within us, within our DNA. It's kind of like a synchronistic movement that occurs all across the board within all these matrices. But your question is, how can the sun help us ascend? But you could also say, how can we help the sun ascend? Because it is synergistic. So we're helping the sun ascend as the sun is helping us ascend, and all the other planetary bodies in the entire solar system. We are completely, it isn't a case of this larger than life planetary body or being or entity, and we're these little human beings down here sort of who know nothing, waiting to be activated. It is massively a synergistic movement, and we're all completely intertwined, and we're all completely crucial. Every single entity is crucial, that this situation, which we call ascension, moves within a flowing, orchestral, beautiful wave, all in one movement, if you like.
With all that being said, these chemtrails that certain people are putting up there, presumably to poison us and also to block the sun's rays, that's really not having any effect on us because we're in the sun regardless, and we don't necessarily need to get those rays.
This is the case for some people. It's not having any effect on them. For others, it may be having an effect on them. So they are actually affected by chemtrails, which have certain chemical technologies within them that can prevent DNA restructuring and create imbalances within the human body and within the planet as well. So it may be that some people are actually being affected, but then what's actually happening is they are creating an antidote. So some have immunity completely, others are creating an antidote to those chemicals, and that antidote may be simultaneous to the receiving of the harmful, if you like, chemical. So it's an instantaneous healing. Others may be affected by the chemtrails for a few days or weeks, but they will find the antidote also. So what I'm saying here is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and there has to be a law of balance. However, those reactions to the original action aren't always simultaneous. So let's say we've got people putting out chemtrails to prevent DNA restructuring, to distort the DNA fields and much more. The antidote will always be there as the reaction to that action. And some people may be able to access that reaction immediately, and others it might take time. And that reaction isn't just one thing. So somebody might find that meditation makes them immune to the chemtrails. Someone else might find they're really sick and ill from chemtrails, but certain foods make them healed. That's the antidote. Others might use herbs or prayer or mantra or chanting or yoga or belief systems or you name it. The antidote, which is the reaction to the action, can be found in many places. And the synchronicity is what will lead you there. So, if you feel you're being affected by chemtrails, you can simply sort of put that up and say, please assist me. How can I work with the immunity to these chemtrails, please? And don't wait, actually take some action to go looking for that antidote. But you will find once you have made that plea or that intention, if you like, then synchronicity will work with your journey to assist you in finding that antidote. So what the nines say to me is chemtrails, yes, they are an issue, but they ramp up the chemtrail components to make them stronger and stronger, because there isn't really having the effect the way that they had hoped, because they had hoped to prevent DNA restructuring completely, and it isn't working, as you say. So the antidote gets ramped up as well. The reaction gets ramped up, and then of course we could have, say, other planetary bodies that are providing antidotes. We could say that extraterrestrials are providing antidotes. So that there's lots of ways that DNA restructuring and thus ascension can be thwarted, infiltrated, hijacked. The aim is to prevent it, and then we've got this reaction coming in. But what's most important to know is that the reaction that is the antidote to chemtrails and anything else that prevents DNA restructuring and thus ascension, the antidote is the seed to the creation of the antidote, whether it comes from food, synchronicity, prayer, whatever. The seed to that is the collective consciousness of the awakened starseeds.
Wow.
So you could say that's extraterrestrials or beings or ascended masters or planets, and that's all true. But the seed to that is the collective consciousness of the ascending individuals. So the starseeds are creating their own antidote in that respect as a collective consciousness, and it's gathering momentum all the time. So if there was no awake individual on the planet, nobody was awake spiritually, everyone, then we would be susceptible. And that's what's happened for many, many years. You've had a few people wake up and move through an ascension process individually, but they've not been able to create enough mass or
consciousness.
Well, yes, consciousness, but really yes, it is consciousness, but it's a certain structure within the consciousness that gives it a life. It gives it its own soul, its own matrix, and it gets to critical mass. And when that gets to critical mass, then everything changes, which is what 2012 was all about.
So we're past that tipping point. We are okay in that sense.
We are okay in that sense, but we cannot sit back and think, that's it then, job done. We must continue. And everything we do, when we turn inward onto ourselves, so really you talk about the sun is outside of us, as in our perception.
Sure.
And so that's really good to be able to look at the cosmos and the solar system and the sun and see how it can benefit us and where our relationship is with it. But when we turn inward, we can find the inner sun, the inner central sun within our being. You see, suns are emanations of the original blueprint that creates the soul. So it's the emanation from the matrix. It's the completely fired up, activated, fully constructed 144 or 144,000 compartments, if you like, to that structure. So the sun is what we are aspiring to be. We're following the path of the sun. And, in the Bible it says, follow me. I know it's, in the Bible, the presentation is that it's Jesus that said that, and there may well have been a man or several men or women or whatever that said, follow me, but they were following the path of the sun. So we follow the path of the sun and we become sons. And the way to do that is not necessarily to look outside of ourselves. We can look outside of ourselves and think what's going on out here, but ultimately the way to assist this collective consciousness of the star seeds, which is creating the antidote to those that would thwart ascension and DNA activation, is not to look, oh, where's this collective consciousness? I want to join them. It's within. So that's why all the spiritual teachers say work on yourself. And when you first hear that, you think, well, how is that going to help anyone when I'm working on myself? It's just me. But of course, when you work on yourself, that's the way. So the way outward is inward to the inner sun.
In your writings and some of your recordings, you talk about the sun children. Are they literally of the sun? I mean, we're all of the sun, but what distinguishes the sun children from the non-sun children?
Well, that would be the children that have been born with a, I was saying about this DNA structure, this lattice structure that is the DNA that makes up our DNA. And when I say DNA, I'm sure your listeners probably realize that you've got the section of DNA that can be measured by scientists, and then you've got this other section of DNA that science can't explain, so they call it junk DNA. So it's the junk DNA we're looking at, and it's just well, to call it junk DNA is quite a hilarious joke, really, because it's everything, and to call it junk is like blasphemy in a way. Yeah. Although the higher energies are aware of humor, so they wouldn't see that as sacrilege or anything. They would laugh along with us, but it's definitely not junk. So that lattice structure that we all have, some of us are incarnated with some of these components within this infinite structure. Some of these etheric strands or threads or equations are dormant or are sort of in shadow, if you like. They're not available to be tapped into. The children of the sun children, would be born with a higher lattice structure within this DNA landscape. They would have more of these threads switched on, or they would certainly have the codes that would allow that structure to be activated at some point. And that's pretty much every child. Perhaps not every single one, but the majority of children born today have more of a DNA structure, because I was talking about this starseed collective consciousness. that because of the mass and the critical mass that's been achieved by the collective consciousness that are the awakened individuals and all their DNA structure, the nine say to me, the light is catching because we're all in the same place ultimately.
Okay.
This is what is called quantum entanglement in physics, which I don't know a great deal about on a physics level, but I know what the nine mean when they explain it to me. Because we're all in the same place, we can catch one another's field. So the babies are being born and the animals are being born in a different way with a higher light quotient, if you like.
Okay.
So they would be the children of the sun, which is ultimately all of us, but we're in a linear way. We're doing this in different stages. So if you look at babies born, say 100 years ago, there wouldn't be anywhere near the amount of new offspring from us brought into our planet with these activated strands like there is now. So these are the children of the sun.
Okay, thank you. So are they different from indigos or rainbow children, crystal children? What is the quote unquote, I hate to use the word highest, but
Yeah.
I don't know how else to explain it.
I know what you mean. Well, that's all of us. We're all the absolute highest. No, these are interchangeable terms, and as I said, we are interpreting frequency. So you might have 10 different, channels or spiritually aware individuals that all would say different things. But what I would say here is that the indigo is a separate thing. The crystal is a separate thing. So the children of the sun, that will encompass indigos and crystals and blue rays, because the indigo is a particular code, and when that code is interpreted through frequency, it can have a sound, it can open up into a codex and have information that you can read. It's all about reading code or reading energy, reading frequency. That's what the ascension is about, because that's what happens when we activate these strands. We start to read data streams, and those data streams are coming in from the sun, but they're all around us and they're in our bodies. So that's why go within, because that's where we will find the data. The sun is the same as us in the sense that it is an infinite infinite stream of codexes. There is much information that can be read from the sun. A lot of data is there, but we can access that same data by going inside of us, but we need to be activated. So the sun is activated, or rather it's activated to the point it can be within the physical structure that it's in. I mean, the part of the sun is ascending as well, so the sun will transform as well into its ascended form, which is sort of beyond my understanding at this point.
Okay.
I'm being taught from the nine at the moment for the writing of my next book. I'm being taught about celestial ascension, and then there's solar ascension, which is the same thing as galactic ascension. So there are different levels, and we can do all of them. But the nine tell me. I ask them lots of questions, and they say sometimes they won't give me the responses or the answers, and they'll say to me, you need to learn to walk before you can run on a linear physical level. So I don't jump ahead. For what that means is for what I'm ready for. And I seem to be in the same place as the majority of that collective consciousness of starseeds. That's not to say that there aren't some individuals that are already further on, if you want to use those words, when it comes to their DNA reconstruction and their memory and their ability to read data. So the indigo would be one particular data, and when you look at that code and you interpret it as color, you're seeing an indigo hue. Everything is a reflection of light. So not necessarily solar light, but I was saying about the sun is a gateway for other forms of light. It's an intermediary for other forms of light. So that light creates reflections. And one of the ways we see reflections is in color. Really, there isn't really such a thing as color. It's just the way the light is reflected, and we can see that in the physical reality, and we can see that in the non-physical antimatter reality. So the indigo is an antimatter presentation of color, and the same with the Blu-ray, and the same with the crystal.
Okay. Thank you. Are you familiar with the sun beings that live in the sun?
Well, it depends what you mean by sun beings. There's lots of ways of interpreting that. So can you give me more information what you mean by sun beings? Beings that live in the sun.
Yes,
Yeah.
higher vibrational beings, much higher than
Yes.
us, and
Yes.
highly intelligent, and also potentially there's a piece of us, the sun, in a sun being.
Okay, so the beings that live in the sun, actual intelligences that have form, as in a body, would be very highly formed or highly evolved plasma beings, because you would have to have a structure that is in alignment with the sun to be able to live in the sun. So I'm not actually familiar with them, I have to be honest. However, obviously, since you've drawn my focus to them, I can see these beings. So they would be formed of plasma. What you would say here is, just like the earth, we live on the earth. So we're humanity on earth. We are a matching structure to earth, as in the way that we evolve. We're evolving on this planet for a reason, even though we're not necessarily native to this planet, in all honesty. In a healthy planetary society, you would have a complete merge between the planet and the society, or the beings on the planet. We're not quite there, because obviously we've had infiltration, but that's where we're going. That's what the ascension is. It's moving into harmony with the planet on all levels. So these plasma beings would be in perfect harmony with the sun. On one level, you would say that they were individual beings, just like we are. And on another level, you would say they're a collective consciousness, just like we are. And then you would say that there's a planetary consciousness, so there's a solar consciousness. So from our linear interpretation, and the fact that we're all in a state of separation, we would see these plasma beings and sun beings as individualized structures, which they are and can be, should they choose to present as an individual structure. But because they are so much more advanced than us, and they are living in another dimension, another time period, they are ultimately a group soul consciousness here, as in the way they express themselves. So we could see them as like 7 billion plasma beings all living on the sun with lots of plasma houses, but that would potentially be a linear interpretation of what they really are, which is ultimately the consciousness of the sun itself expressed as a collective, and the ability to be able to be expressed as an individual. Now, this is what we are doing as humans in our ascension. We're doing the same thing. So that's why we would follow the path of the sun, follow the sun, or follow the sun beings, follow the plasma beings.
Okay.
You know, they are our teachers, if you like, and what we aspire to be. But as I said, we are just as necessary in this sort of synergistic way of living to the sun and to the sun beings as well. What we do affects them, and what they do affects us. We're intimately intertwined. So that would make sense when you say there's a piece of us in them. Yeah, that's what that would mean. Yes, that would be true.
Okay.
You know, if you want to say there's a solar being living in the sun that is you on another level, that would be true. It's a metaphor, but then so is everything.
I have a quote of yours that is from January 7th, 2018, so it's fairly recent. And you said, taking action is the conscious walking of the path of the sun, for the sun is your golden stream, the sacred masculine king of the day. This is utilized well in 2018, and you channeled that from the 9. What does that all mean for 2018?
Yeah, here's me saying I didn't know much about the sun. Yeah, obviously that is the nine. That's the nine. And sometimes I will actually bring information through from them and promptly forget it. So what that means is what they're talking about there. Yes, you could say that that's the actual physical sun, but what they say to me about the sun is an emanation. The entire solar system's an emanation, but the sun really embodies the emanation because it itself emanates also. So if you look behind the sun, there is another sun, if you like. Many call this the central sun, and then there's another sun behind that, the grand central sun. So we've got a solar fractalized presentation of infinite suns. So you can use any of those suns as well as the inner sun within you as the king of the day, the sacred masculine. And the reason why is because when you take action within your physical life, you are making your spiritual journey, if you like, physical. You can take a pilgrimage. So if you go away from home for 2 days and think, right, I'm going to take a pilgrimage, and you intend that pilgrimage, and you specifically create an intention for what you want to discover, or the quest, you take the quest, you will find synchronicity will come to you in the form of your matter around you. People, places, objects, situations. So that is you making the spiritual path conscious. So you are walking the path of the sun, which is the king of the day. And the reason why we use the word king is because we are looking at a masculine force by following the conscious path, as in physical. And that really relates to the left hemisphere of the brain, and the action you take in the physical form, the physical body. The match to that would be the queen of the night, which is the lunar path, and the moon, which is the subconscious. So that would be the right hemisphere of the brain. So this is making your spiritual path an inner path. But when you go inward, you will find a sun. And when you come outward, you will find a moon. They are completely synergistic and balanced. So there will be the lunar energy and the solar energy, the king and the queen, in everything, in all structures. So that's the dualistic emanation from source, which is the one. Source is the law of one. Source is the unified field. Source is the flame. And when the flame emanates, it creates the twin flame. So we would see that twin flame as a masculine and a feminine. So we could have sun and moon, night and day, king and queen, the Christ and the Sophia. There are many ways that we can name that first emanation. And we in the physical universe are living in reflection of that emanation. And so what ascension is going back to where the emanation came from in the first place. We're going back to the original emanation, but ascension, we do it in the body. Okay. So 2018 is about this knowledge coming to us, is about the fact that we are taking the same path that all souls take, but in a third dimensional reality, one would leave the body, as in the death experience, and die in order to be able to follow this journey of memory and reconstructing and going back to that original emanation, the flame. But ascension is specific to staying within separation. So you are as far away from the emanation as you can possibly be, source, the flame, and you are returning to it into a complete unified field, which is the law of one. So we are taking both. And 2018, so 2017 was the great reveal, the revealing of that which has been hidden, the revealing of what that which is in the shadow. 2018 is about shining the light on what has been revealed, looking at it and thinking, well, what is that? I don't know what this is. So 2018 and beyond is processing this, it's decoding this, it's making sense. This is what we're all doing, which is why we are having, the star seeds as a collective are having huge downloads right now, and realizations and epiphanies constantly, because we are making sense of that which has been revealed. So that's 2018. So this is why the sun, we're in the path of the sun, because we're bringing this into the consciousness and the conscious awareness. We're shining a light on it. We're making it the day. It's no longer the night. But we do this through the understanding of the night, which is the divine feminine. And that's what's been taken. The moon, the lunar, the divine feminine, the subconscious has been kept separate. So all we have seen is the sun, the masculine, which is fine. It's wonderful. But without the merge, without the divine marriage, we cannot find the truth, and we cannot make sense of the path of the sun and see the day without seeing the night, because the shadow and the light work together. So that's where we are as a collective right now within the starseed, which is why we're creating immunity to things like chemtrails. Chemtrails are trying to shut us down, and we are massively waking up. They're simply not working. So it's a bit of a waste of chemical technology, really, in all honesty, because the antidotes are just abundant.
Okay. We can override anything that they're trying to do to us at this point.
Yes, we can, if we take the action. And that's why it's the path of the sun and it's the day. Because if we sit and we think, well, I'm fine, I'm a starseed, I'm ascending, there's nothing I need to do. There are some individuals that may feel that, and that's because they are crystals and they're crystal generators and they are emanating as crystals themselves. So if you feel like there's nothing you need to do, that's fine. There's a difference between doing nothing and sitting back and just sort of waiting for it all to happen, and emanating as a crystal being, because there's stillness and then there's inertia. Okay. So there's a difference between the two, and the stillness is still action because you're consciously still. So as long as you are consciously still or consciously moving, you are still taking action. Okay. And so that is how we are creating these abundant immunities to any kind of infiltration. And that's where we need to go right now. That's the space that we need to find.
So to clarify, taking action would be focusing on yourself, going within and working on yourself?
Yes, it would. Taking action would be implemented in many, many ways. And it's making your action conscious with focused intention. So you don't have to actually be taking action. Doesn't mean you get up at 8 o'clock and you rush around until midnight and fall into bed exhausted. That isn't what action means. It's taking intention and making everything intentional. So it's like, right now I intend to lie on the sofa for 2 hours, veg out and watch telly. It's fine to do that. If it's within, if there's a reason for it. Why are you vegging out and watching telly? Is it because you've been working spiritually and, doing yoga or meditation all day? Or are you doing talks all day or writing a book? Or are you a teacher of some kind? So then you can have your 2 hours or whatever. As long as everything is intentional, it's within action. Inaction, inertia, and sort of lack of movement is like, well, I don't need to do anything. You do it for me. I'll just sit back. I'll just wait. That's where you will go away from alignment, and you're going to find it difficult to restructure the DNA codes and ascend if you are in a place of sitting back and doing nothing. But if it's sitting back and doing nothing with intention for a reason, and it could be that you're in stillness, you're in the hermit phase, that's okay. So just working out, making it conscious, and then that's the sun and the moon, that's the night and the day within that intention. It's just all about analysing what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it doesn't matter if you make a mistake and you go out of that for a couple of days and you think, oh no, I've been doing nothing for 2 days thinking I was okay, or I felt lazy, or I was upset, or it's okay, because it's what you do sort of within your regular life that creates the trajectory, not what you're doing occasionally.
Thank you for that. Central sun, I know that you mentioned there's our sun and there's multiple infinite amount of suns behind. So would you consider the sun kind of like I don't want to say filter, but more of a buffer for these higher vibrational energies to come through to us? And does it expand, contract that filter in alignment with what we can receive at the moment?
On a physical level, yes, the sun is acting like some kind of buffer or shielding from higher emanations, so that we can. So the sun, as I said, is like a gateway for other forms of light. So that's the filter system. So the sun will allow to come through its, solar body, that which we can receive. So we don't want to go into burnout. So if the sun sort of let in every emanation wanting to assist us within our DNA activation, we would just burn out. We are looking at fire here. This is actually cosmic fire, and it's literal fire when we look at the sun. Fire is wonderful because it holds codes and it fires us up, and we have fire within us that's the same. But if we have too much fire, then we'll burn. So the sun is our filter and is doing a very good job of filtering. When I say the sun, there are many suns behind. That's kind of a metaphor, because really they're all in one place. But there is actually a physical body behind the sun as well that we aren't aware of, some kind of celestial body that's physical. And then there are these antimatter emanations that are solar presentations, solar consciousness structures that can go into the central sun, the grand central sun, the grand central sun, into this fractal infinity. But on the physical level, in the physical universe, there is actually something behind the sun as well.
Wow.
Well, the 9 tell me that the sun works in, I'm really not I'm not a physicist or a cosmologist or an astronomer or anything, but so I don't really understand these terms, but they tell me that the sun is a binary star.
Wow.
So there's 2 of them.
Oh boy.
So whether it's another sun or whether it is a different kind of celestial body, potentially a star, so they work as a pair. We all do this. It's a binary system that we live in, and that hasn't been discovered yet. But that's only in this physical universe. When we raise within our solar system, I get solar system and universe interchangeable, because they are pretty much the same thing, really. As we raise up in frequency within a universal galactic level, so at the moment we're in a binary system, we will go into, eventually, when we ascend in a galactic sense, we'll go into a trinary system. Okay. So there'll be 3, and then we'll go into an infinite movement, because every structure is becoming, it mirrors that flame. That one flame is the unified field source, the law of one, and the first emanation is the twin flame. So as we go back to that emanation, we're following that same structure, we're following that same path. So the twin flame then becomes the Holy Trinity, or the trine, or the triad, and so on and so forth. So yes, this is reasonably new information that the 9 have given me as I'm writing my new book. They've been kind of blowing my mind, to be absolutely honest with you, regarding not so much the information, really. It's not the information necessarily that they're giving me. It's the way they are asking me to decode the information or to process it, which is a different way than they've done before. And this is what's happening to us as starseeds. We start off to process in a linear sense, and that's when we have a double helix DNA structure. And then we begin to process things in a bilocational sense, which is two. So we're moving into these etheric strands within the double helix. So we're taking on two concepts simultaneously in our processing, and often those concepts can be completely in opposition to one another, and we'll find these concepts will come into our reality. So someone will say we live in a binary star system. Somebody will say, no, we don't. Our solar system is spiraling. Some might say there are 3 suns, there are 2 suns. Some people might say the sun is a stargate. And we try to get our head around all this information that doesn't marry up in a linear sense with its opposing belief system or opposing theory.
Yes.
So what we're doing is we are opening up to multiple theories that potentially, depending on from which perspective you're looking at, all have truth. So as we do this within our own consciousness, we're actually changing the structure of the DNA, and the DNA changes our consciousness. So the planets and the stars are doing the same thing, as well as they ascend as a galactic structure, as a universe, as a solar system, and go into this this infinite fractal of evolution that we're all on. So from the perspective of the sun, it's doing the same thing. So it's binary at the moment, but it will be trinary, and eventually it will be multiply, whatever the word is.
Okay. The other sun behind the sun is its twin flame. Would that be appropriate to call it that?
Well, yes, you could. I mean, one way of looking at it would be the moon and the sun are the twin flames to one another, really, because you've got sun and moon, which are both emanations and emanating different codes into our into our own frequency, and we are connecting with them. But from another perspective, if you've got a sun that's in an orbit with another planetary structure or celestial structure, then yes, that would be also mirroring the twin flame. So there's lots of perspectives as to see where that twinning is. It's everywhere, so.
Okay, I'm aware of somebody that is with their twin flame in this lifetime, and he had memories of the two of them together as binary planets revolving around each other. So that's why I ask.
So those memories that he has are perceived when he remembered, he would perceive in a linear line. So he would say, I remember in the past when we were binary stars together. But when we actually, as we're decoding the metaphor and shining the light upon these ways of making sense of everything, the next step up from that, as in raising the metaphor to the next level of truth, would be that he is the planet, and so is she already, and they're already there. So it's when it's a memory, you think it's in the past because that's how we see memory. But ultimately, we are actually picking up on what's happening now. So if you connect with someone who stands in a twin flame frequency with you, I won't say your twin flame because that again is another whole subject. Yeah, exactly. As the sun might decide to orbit a different star in several thousand hundred years. I mean, we can move in and out of celestial relationships and physical relationships. But when he says if you are in a relationship with someone that mirrors that twin flame energy with you, then you are planetary bodies or celestial bodies orbiting one another in a binary sense. You're already that because of the collective consciousness that we all are part of.
Amazing.
It is, isn't it? It is amazing.
Well, thank you, Magenta, so much for your time. I really appreciate your presence and your knowledge, and thank you to the 9 as well for everything you're doing. even outside of this interview.
Thank you for asking us. And I love your sun behind. It's so nice. Look, isn't that beautiful? That's amazing. And of course, you've got the face there, which is personifying the sun as a being in its own right, as an entity, as an intelligence, pouring love onto all of us with its light. So it's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you. I love it too.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you or the nine would like to add before we leave?
Well, only that I live here obviously in England, and we don't get as much sun as other parts of the world do. So anyone living in a colder climate might be concerned that they're not getting enough sun to actually access the codes. And on a physical level, that might actually be the case, as in you're not making enough vitamin D within your body because you haven't been out in the sun enough. So you might need to supplement with vitamin D. That might well be a situation in people who don't get enough actual sun go through their skin. But that's a physical level. But when it comes to the codes of light, you can do this. It doesn't matter what the weather is. It could be pouring with rain. It could be the middle of the night. There's no sun. It's been raining for days. There's not been any sun for days. You know, as long as there is sunlight, so you know, every day there is light outside, even if you can't see the sun, you're getting those codes, even if it's raining, because it's these codes are light codes. Even though it looks like, you know, they can come in the form of these solar flares and it's actually fire, what we receive it as is light, which is information, and we have that in our bodies already. So
so we're good.
We are restructuring the DNA regardless of the weather or what the sun is doing.
Okay, regardless of chemtrails.
And regardless of chemtrails, yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for being here on the Sol2Soul Global Summit, and thank you again to Magenta, Pixie, and the nine. This has been phenomenal.
Thank you. Yay. Bye.